Hello, everyone. Hi, welcome to January's Fold Academy. We're really excited for you to be here today. My name is Hudson Lin. I am the program coordinator at the Fold, and today we have award-winning author and screenwriter Catherine Hernandez here to offer us some tips on how to write dialogue. And before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items. Firstly, this workshop will be approximately 1 hour long, which includes about 15 minutes of questions and answers at the end. So if you have any questions during the workshop, feel free to submit them using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And we will do questions at the end. We are also using Zoom's auto captioning function. And so some of the captions might not be transcribed correctly. However, all captions will be corrected when the recording is made available on YouTube. And yes, the workshop today is being recorded and it will be uploaded to YouTube next week. You'll receive an email with the link. And so if you would like to rewatch the workshop at your leisure, you can do that when the link is sent out. All right, so right now I am thrilled to introduce Catherine Hernandez. I'm going to invite her up onto the stage and then give you a quick intro. Catherine is the award-winning author and screenwriter of Scarborough, the book and the film. Her other books include Crosshairs, The Story of Us, and Behind You. Welcome, Catherine. I will pass it off to you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm amazed. 74 people of you were here. I did not expect. I don't know why. I just assumed that birthday party feelings that no one's gonna make it, and it's gonna just be me and Lynn and a stick drawing. And I don't know. So yeah, I'm really excited to do this. So yes. So hello. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to the Fold for bringing me in. So today we're gonna, just focus on creating natural dialogue, as the workshop title describes. I love doing dialogue because you can accomplish a lot in a very short amount of time with dialogue. We can understand story, you can understand characters, you can understand you can understand sort of like the engine pushing us towards the end of the scene, the end of a book, and end of like the plot. Like there's so many things that we can achieve in dialogue. And it also, I find it just fun. I one of the reasons why I find it fun is because there's so much that we can understand from people by the way that they speak to one another. I can understand what a character believes, what other people think of that character, what that character thinks of other people. It just so much is accomplished very, very efficiently. The only issue is that oftentimes, as someone who's a screenwriter and a playwright, I find when I watch media, like television or film, is that I find that there's a lot of dialogue that I bump on. So that's like a screenwriting term. It's like I bump on it, like where it sort of stops me in my tracks because it doesn't feel natural. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to create as natural dialogue as possible, maybe sort of learn how we can accomplish a lot with a little bit of dialogue, and how actually the process of creating dialogue can help us with like the creative process of creating dialogue actually helps us with our creative process in general, right? The reason why I offer that is because now that I work in television, because of the follow-up from the success of Scarborough, the film, is that I have been hired numerous times to help develop television, is that I find that process in the television room with writers is actually, for me, was really generative, that I can recreate that process by myself in my room while writing numerous different things, be it right now I'm trying to do like graphic storytelling, or if it's writing long form fiction, that same creative process is great. I'm going to try to recreate this, even though we're all on Zoom. And we can't really talk with one another, but I'm just going to give examples, right? So what I'm thinking is we're going to do this. We're going to work with sort of like an example for our time together. Then we can go into like question and answer period, and then we'll sum everything up with the fold. I want to just do a shout out to the fold because I love this team. Love them. Wish I didn't live so far away. Seriously, still one of my favorite festivals, and also amazing workshops throughout the year. So thank you. I'm so blessed to be a part of it this year and to start your year off with this conversation. Okay. So what I usually do is when it comes to dialogue, to practice, is I eavesdrop. Okay. I don't care how immoral it is. I'm sorry, but as an artist, like I like to just practice about with how people speak to one another. And especially when it comes to arguments, is that you will not hear arguments. Like you can't write arguments down and pretend that you know how people sound if you're not going to actually listen to people argue. And I'm sorry, but I love overhearing arguments. I love it. I love it. It's definitely a Scarborough thing. Like I love witnessing fights. And so, especially in public spaces, it's so much fun to be like sitting there going, oh my gosh, how is this unfolding? How is this drama gonna end? Right. And I always give this example when I've been asked in public about dialogue, about like, how do you create some natural dialogue? It's like, well, it's practice about listening about how people speak. And the best place I find to listen to arguments is at IKEA, because people aren't going to IKEA and it's not like all, harps and roses. People are there and they are at each other's throats because they have to get that Billy cabinet and they have to get it in like half an hour. Like it's to me, it's hilarious. I love going there. I think it's a great, if I was still single, I would go there as a date night. I think it's hilarious to go there. Anyway, while I'm looking at things in IKEA, I love just like eavesdropping on people and like the decisions that they're making, because that conflict really teaches you about how a conversation begins, how it unfolds, and how it resolves itself. Okay, so I believe that we should start there. There's one conversation that I heard, I give this often as an example. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. This is too much pressure, man. Being this middle-aged person doing tech in front of, how many of you are here? I think there's like over 100 now. Okay, so I'm gonna go and do this final draft, share. Okay, so now you can see my screen. We are looking at my final draft page. I'm doing this in a screenplay format, but obviously you could do this in for your comic books or for your prose, like whatever. Like so here we are. So we're just gonna start here using this screenwriting software, just so that we can have a good example of how we can develop dialogue. So the conversation that I remember at IKEA was that there was this guy just really taking his time looking at the different furniture. It was in the bedroom section, I think. And he was just like, really taking his time looking at the drawers and stuff. And then someone who I assume is his wife came to him, like just like beeline towards him, comes right to him. And excuse me, but there's going to be language in this workshop. She comes to him and she was like, where the fuck were you? And he's like, oh, I was just here like looking at the cabinet. She was like, I've been looking for you for half an hour. Where the hell were you? I'm listening in on this conversation. They had words and then they finally left, right? So let me just outline this. I'm just going to pretend that those two people are just beyond my computer screen. I'm imagining them now. And I'm just going to write this down. So let's slug it out. So, interior, IKEA, bedroom section, Dave. Okay. Then we have, man, let's say 30s, casually strolls through section, calmly opening and closing doors, opening and closing drawers. Not a care in the world. Okay. Woman, 30s, makes a beeline towards man, with rage in her eyes. Okay, let's just say. She says, now let's do character. Woman, where the fuck were you? Where the fuck have you been? The man would be like, well, okay, so I don't want to push it. I am not in charge of what they're saying. They're in charge of what they're saying. I always think of, when it comes to dialogue, that I'm a court stenographer. They're just beyond my laptop screen, and I'm listening to them speak. So I'm imagining them now, using my imagination. I'm seeing these two characters facing each other in IKEA. I'm there. That there's noise. It's a lot. There's people all around, and I'm listening to them speak. So I know that her first line is, "Where the fuck have you been?" And I'm just gonna let him say what he's gonna say, and I'm gonna just write it down. So I'm not manipulating them. I'm simply just listening to the characters in my imagination. The reason why I say that is because if I try to imagine that I'm the one coming up with this dialogue, there's something different about that dynamic. Is that it's me making up the line, instead of allowing these two people, who are completely different people, that are not me, speaking to one another, if that makes any sense. And that's how you make it natural, is that with our imaginations as artists, is that we really have to imagine how people are speaking to one another. And if we allow characters to speak to one another, it becomes it becomes more organic, if that makes any sense. And when you're really in the river of creativity, it feels so good to just hear characters speak with one another. So anyway, here, so where the fuck have you been? So let's just say the man is like, well, where you have been, right? Where were you? I know that that sounds kind of like as if he's like as if he's like trying to sidestep the conversation, but that's kind of the idea. So where the fuck have you been? Well, where you have been, right? Where were you? If she says now, so woman, geez, can you answer a question question for once. We've been looking for you for ages. We still have to figure out what size mattress can fit in her dorm room. Okay, so that's me just hearing what they're saying. I'm hearing what they're saying. I'm letting them speak. It's surprising me. I'm surprised by the fact that he's not really answering a question. I'm surprised by the fact that this woman is now mentioning this dorm room. This is all intuition, right? And I like this. I like when characters surprise me with things, because now we're realizing they're not just partners, they're also possibly parents, and possibly parents of a child who is about to go to university. Can you see how we're like starting to accomplish things? Okay. And we're getting a sense of this dynamic that between these two partners is that the woman is, I'm reading that she's constantly dealing with disappointment from him. And on his end is that he's constantly dealing with this onslaught of criticism from her. And that perhaps he's checked out because of that. I don't know. Let's just keep on trying. Let's keep on having them speak to one another. Okay, so let's read this out loud, because it really helps us to get this dialogue nailed down. Where the fuck have you been? Well, where have you been, right? But where were you? Geez, can you answer a question for once? We've been looking for you for ages. We still have to figure out what size mattress can fit in her dorm room. Great. That feels good. I don't seem to bump on anything. We might bump on it a little bit later. Okay. So right now we have them arguing. We can continue this. However, what might be really cool is we have to understand that rage at each other and arguments with each other don't really have the alchemy of it. It doesn't create like the sparks that we want unless we create dramatic tension. So imagine that they're not in IKEA. Imagine that they're just in this room, this rage room, in which there are like all sorts of things that they can hit each other with. That's not very interesting. Watching these parents basically pummel each other because they're upset. That's not very interesting. However, we've set it in IKEA. We understand that it's in public. And we understand that their daughter is somewhere in the close vicinity, right? So they don't want to make a scene. And they certainly don't want to make a scene in front of their daughter. So that provides some dramatic tension. So let's add an element. Okay, so now that we understand this in public, let's revise this. We're going to go back. The woman, let's say his name is Steve, okay? With rage in her eyes. So I'm going to go back to the stage directions. I'm going to say, seething. She tries to get his attention. So she could be like, Steve. Okay. Also, what if Steve is busy talking about like he's in the drapery section of IKEA, which I always find that that's like the place where you have the most questions about life. It's too many questions. There's too many like things you have to think about when it comes to drape. So he's talking to one of the sales associates. Okay. Steve. Okay, I'm gonna put this down here. The man, man is busy talking to IKEA associate about drapes. So he's speaking to the associate. Wow, I didn't know. Oh no, wait, let's think about this. I'm pushing. I don't want to push. Wow. This pattern. No. He would say something along the lines of, but we need it to black out for reals. Like no light. Is that possible? Then the woman says, Steve. Steve turns around. Man turns around a little surprised. Did you see this? This might help with you not, this might help with your, what do you call it? Your night shifts. I don't know. I'm just coming up with something because now we're understanding. Maybe the woman she's a shift worker. This helps us to understand that maybe she is so exhausted from the shift work, whatever that is, that it's causing issues in their relationship. It could be that, maybe something, right? Night shifts. She can be like, yeah, that's nice. Woman gives her smile at associate before pulling man aside. Okay. All right. So now we're getting a sense that it's tension. It's in public. There's this associate working. You know, it's not easy. We can't just have this argument. I'm sure that all of us feel that way. We really, really wish that we could just have these full-on arguments with people in public without people watching. But it creates dramatic tension, understanding that it's in public, right? Pulling man aside. So the woman says, there. So she's like whispering, where the fuck have you been? Can you see how that creates tension? So let's read this again. Steve. Oh, but we need to like black out for reals, like no light. Is that even possible? Steve, did you see this? This might help with your night shifts. Yeah, that's nice. Where were you? Well, where have you been? Right? Where were you? We're getting a little bit more tension there. So that just sort of gives you something, an idea as to how we create tension. Now let's make it even more tense. They're in the middle of an argument. They've just been pulled away. They just had to pull away from this associate so that they don't appear to be an happily married couple, which they are. Let's say now the daughter comes in let's name her Wendy. Okay. Wendy, let's say she's in her she's 19. She's no, sorry, she'd be younger. Let's make her 18. 18 enters holding a bag of pillows, right? It's always nice to have people not just standing there when it comes to dialogue, not just for a screenplay, but anytime. Like anytime people are uh speaking, is that it's usually they're not like, like this, like I'm telling you a thing and then you say a thing and it's best that people are actually doing what's called business. I'll give you an example. Is that for I'm going to give you an example with Scarborough, is that there were in the screenplay, I made sure that Bing and his mother Edna were flossing their teeth while having a conversation about what Bing wants to be when he grows up. Because imagine if Bing is telling his mom, like, I want to be a crossing guard. And she's like, well, what, that's, you can't be a crossing guard. He's like, well, why? Well, it's because crossing guards are actually there. It's not a job. It's a job, but those people are mostly retired people. So that conversation would be kind of funny, but not really. But it would be better if they're doing something. So them flossing their teeth. So if ever you watch the movie, I heard it's good, is that when they're flossing their teeth, it makes it so much more natural, is that they're flossing their teeth and they're talking about what Bing wants to be when he grows up. And when he mentions like, well, I want to be a crossing guard, is that Ellie Posadas, who's an amazing actor and comedian. She just like let out the most natural laugh, and he's like, well, why are you laughing? She's like, oh, no, it's not really a job. It's just like most of those people are retired, So it makes, there's something about giving people business that really helps ground a scene, so it's not just talking heads. So in this case, Wendy's coming in. She's got this bag, holding a bag of pillows. She's super excited. So maybe she comes in and she says, Mom, Dad, and this is when you really have to listen, okay? You have to keep on listening to the way people speak, especially young people, especially children. But right now, I just finished production on the first season of a show that is a young adult show. And let me tell you, there is nothing more humbling than being a middle-aged person trying to get the cadence of how teenagers speak. And you have to learn how to listen to the way that people speak to one another, or otherwise you won't be able to nail it. And so for this, let's just imagine like, Mom, Dad, I was about to say, check this out. Okay, that's not what they say. So let's go with just like the what would you say, Mom? Maybe can I get these two? Mom, Dad, look, can I get these two? All right. And I would like, because of the dramatic tension, that man and woman suddenly turn around, all smiles, as if they were not in a heated argument. Okay. you see the dramatic tension here, is that this child is under the impression that her parents are perfectly happy. So let's play with that. Let's play with that. What would they say? What would they do to continue this ruse, right? They're about to have this empty nest and they are at each other's necks. Okay. So they turn around. Woman says, "Hey, love it." I'm a little bit bossy. I don't want to control actors in the way that they speak. However, I do take a lot of liberties with extending vowels. It's something you can't really do in like, when you're writing a book, right? But like in screenwriting, I do love playing with vowels because it helps actors understand what the pace is that I'm expecting as a screenwriter, right? It helps the director understand like sort of the tone that I'm asking for. So man and woman suddenly turn around, all smiles as if they were not in a heated argument. Yeah, love it. Wendy can say something like, let's up the stakes, because now we have to understand fully that she is under the impression that her parents are she's under the impression that her parents still love each other. So let's think of something that she might say. Hey, love it. Maybe we'll have her, Wendy sighs and places pillows in a shopping cart. Thanks, guys, for buying all this. Sure, it's okay. Anything for my babe. Anything for my little girl. Okay. When you say that, anything for my little girl, there's something about that to me that says there's also financial pressure. Makes me think about that as a writer. How can I add that to this scene? We might not accomplish that in our time together, but let's give it a think. Anything for my little girl. Wendy continues. Can I be real? I'm gonna miss us. Is that cheesy? Do all woman. Okay. We need to read this over again because I feel like I'm pushing a little bit. But let's try to do it again. Let's read from the very beginning. I know that this sounds hilarious that I'm going to keep on reading over and over again, but there's something about it that lets us develop what the next line is as naturally as possible. So now we're saying it's in the drapery section. Man is in drapery section. Not a care in the world. Woman makes a beeline towards him. She's seething, right? Trying to get his attention. Steve. But we need it to black out for reals, like no light. Is that possible? Steve. Oh, did you see this? This might help with your night shifts. Yeah, that's nice. Have you been? Well, where have you been? Right? Like where were you? Jeez, can you answer a question for once? We've been looking for you for ages. We still have to figure out what size mattress can fit in our dorm room. Mom, Dad, look, can I get these two? Yeah, love it. Thanks, guys, for buying all this. You sure that it's okay? Anything for my little girl. Can I be real? I'm gonna miss us. I don't know. I'm gonna miss us. Is that cheesy? the mother can say, no, don't make me cry. Me cry, not here. Am I the only mom whose best friend is her kiddo? Wendy says something along the lines of, okay, so I'm thinking that she's gonna, they all embrace, they all do they all do a family embrace before Wendy moves to exit. When he says, "Ooh, can I pick up some sheets too?" Mine are old. Man. Of course. And you know, it's nice to come up with nicknames. Of course, okay. Of course, go. All right. So I want to go back to Wendy's line. Can I be real? I'm gonna miss, I don't know, I'm gonna miss us. Is that cheesy? I feel like I'm pushing too hard in that line. Let's make it something a little bit more natural. Are you sure it's okay? Anything from my little girl? Can I be real? I'm gonna miss us. I don't know, I'm gonna miss us. Is that cheesy? Anyway. Let's keep on going, and then we can go back to sort of see a little bit more here. So if Wendy exits, man and woman face each other. What if woman says something like, really? Anything? Can you please be a bit more, what is the word? Anything? Why don't you give her a blank check? No, maybe that's a little bit too forced, but you know where I'm going here, right? Is that we're trying to create a line that gives us a sense that there is money issues. Anyways, whatever. And each other and sigh. Ooh, what if the man says something along the lines of, yeah, whatever. I'll be in the lineup at the cafeteria. Maybe get some meatballs. If it's okay to spend money there. If it's okay to spend money or whatever. You'll notice that when I do my dialogue is that it's very informal because people don't often speak in formal full sentences. I have a lot of ellipses. I have a lot of pauses. It really gives me a lot of freedom with how people read it. My goal is most definitely to get the actors, that if they are to receive the dialogue, that they can say it out loud and it just feels natural. That's what you want. So let's see how it feels, right? We're going to keep on reading it back and forth. This is what we do with trying to create natural dialogue. Okay. Let's see if we can understand who these people are in this very short amount of dialogue. Steve. But we needed to black out for reals. Like no light. Is that even possible? Steve, did you see this? This might help with your night shifts. Yeah, that's nice. What the were you? Well, okay, so I just screwed up there. Most likely it's because this is the wrong line. If I keep on screwing up, it means I have to rewrite it. Where the fuck have you been is now going to be changed to where the fuck were you? Okay. I always say that. And if an actor keeps on stumbling, it's not because they're a bad actor. It's because you've written it wrong. So let's try this again. Did you see this? This might help with your night shifts. Yeah, that's nice. Where the fuck were you? Well, where have you been? Right? Like where were you? Jeez, can you answer a question for once? We've been looking for you for ages. We still have to figure out what size mattress can fit in our dorm room. Mom, Dad, look, can we get these too? I love it. Thanks, guys, for buying all this. You sure it's okay? Anything for my little girl. Can I be real? I'm gonna miss, I don't know, I'm gonna miss us. Is that cheesy? Oh, don't make me cry. Not here. Am I the only mom whose best friend is her kiddo? They all do this a family embrace. Wendy moves to exit. Oh, can I pick up some sheets too? Mine are old. Of course, go. She exits. Man and woman face each other. Really? Anything? Why don't you give her a blank check? Anyways, whatever. And whatever. I'll be in the lineup at the cafeteria. Maybe you'll get some meatballs if that's okay to spend money or whatever. Woman exits. What do we learn from this? We learn that their parents, the kids are going off to school. The parents have issues, possibly money issues, possibly maybe the logistics of their lives, right? They've maybe been keeping each other up at night because of maybe shift work, possibly. There's money issues as mentioned. And we all did that with only 2 pages of dialogue. This is what we're doing. This is the power of dialogue. So that said, I think probably that's a good place to stop. Stop share. Then we can go into questions if you want.
Yeah, thank you so much, Catherine. That was fascinating to watch you work in real time. I was like, wow, riveting. We have some really, really good questions here. If there are any in the audience, remember to pop them into the Q&A box at the bottom, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. So first question is, I'm a nonfiction writer, and I wonder how these techniques apply to creative nonfiction. Could there be an exercise to tap into emotions or energy or anything like that? So how would the demonstration you showed us apply to creative nonfiction?
Ooh, great question. Especially because I don't write creative nonfiction, so please excuse me. Is that I would say what I would think is really, really interesting is that if in the dialogue that if you're having 2 people speak to each other in like, for example, if this conversation happened in real life, an example, right? You still don't want the talking heads. I would strongly suggest describing how people, like what people were doing. First thing that comes up into my head is, so if I was to describe a scene that I saw in Anthony Bourdain's No Reservations. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that television show, but he traveled the world and then he had conversations with people all over the world mostly about food. Is that if I was to describe it, I would say Anthony hunched over, sitting in a chair, much too small for his North American stature, has a conversation with a restaurant owner in Vietnam. There's something about describing where he's at, his body, what's in his hands, describing what's happening in the pauses in this conversation that might help you. The creative nonfiction that I've read, that oftentimes when I'm given that picture, rather than it being an interview that you can read, like a verbatim interview that you can read in a magazine. It really helps elevate that conversation and makes it feel alive for people when they're reading it. So I hope that that helps.
Great. Okay. So next question is about point of view. And when you're writing in novels, we're often in one character's point of view, and then maybe sometimes next chapter will switch to the next person. So the question is, how do you know which point of view to prioritize? And does that change when you're writing in a novel or versus like a TV script or a play?
Ooh, that's really great. What I'm going to say is you just have to try it. What feels better with some of my work is that I've actually experimented when you see both sides, and how does the two perspectives change the way that we understand the story, right? That experimentation can happen in several different mediums. With a screenplay, you're still going to play with that about like how does a perspective tell a different story. Oftentimes because of the expense of creating a visual media like that, is that you're often pressured by producers to really stick with one character. So if you watch film and television, oftentimes it's almost like as if you're in the body of this one character experiencing this world, right? But I have to say the biggest thing is experimentation. There are certain perspectives that will sit well in your body. And I'm going to ask you that when you're experimenting, the best way for you to understand which one is going to work best is to really be in your body as a writer. I know that I'm making the right decision because my body's buzzing and I know that it's good. Like, and you see, like, you know, me working in real time is that as soon as I feel that there's a decision that feels good, like I'll get bubbly, I'll feel good. And if I bump against it, it feels like there's like a rock in my shoe. And that's because I'm very much, I've worked very hard for my career. Like every day I'm embodied as an artist, right? And I'm very in touch with the feelings that I'm having as I'm laying down the track. So, so just keep trying. You know, like how do I know which perspective? Just try it, see what works. You know, and then you'll realize which puppet you feel better having your hand in. If that helps you.
I love how you're saying, like, how does it feel in your body? Because I've experienced that too, where if it's like, it feels right, it's just like, it's hard to describe it. It's like a very physical in your body, like, oh yes, this is the right thing to write right now, or this is the correct way this character would respond or interact in the situation. And when it doesn't feel right, it's like, oh, clearly this is not what the character wants to do at the moment. You need to stop forcing them.
Yes. And like, you know, and I want, because I just did it as well. Like we can also be like, if this feels right now. Yeah. When you said that, it's so perfect, Lynn. It's like, it feels right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it might not, you know, and like for Scarborough, the novel is that I really love this idea of different perspectives on one event, like one tragic event. Because that tragic event would be seen so differently in the eyes of different community members, is that just try it out. You can try it out. And there were some perspectives that were not included in the final manuscript of Scarborough. So the only thing you can do is just experiment and feel how it is in your body. Yeah.
Great. Okay, next question is about using multiple languages. So mixing another language in with English. And how have you done that? Like, how do you do that in a way where, you know, you don't have to include like a dictionary or something, so people understand what that other language is without having to like go maybe look it up in a dictionary, or what that word is in that other language?
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad that someone's asking that question. Something that I really bump on, and when I say bump, what I mean in this actual meaning is, I really want to flip a table, is that sometimes you'll watch a television show and they'll have someone who happens to not be white. And then for some reason, this person will be like, ay, Dios mío, blah, 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 blah. And they will just say something that you understand that the writers in that room they just looked something up and just added something, just sprinkled a little something just to look authentic. And it makes me really angry because like I don't go through life like every now and then like speaking Tagalog like just like that, just like one little like itty bitty part of my phrase, I feel like the more clever thing to do is what happens in real life. So for example, for Filipinos is that there is definitely like this Taglish thing that goes on, is that you would have like part of the sentence that is in Filipino, the other person answering in English, and then the English phrase will sort of point to you as to what was said in that way. There's also a way of writing that we have to just embrace, that sometimes people won't understand you. Like that's it's perfectly fine. I don't think we need to pander to English speakers. I think there's a beauty in a poetry. Every language lives in your body in a different way. So yeah, but that's one way of doing it, is that instead of it doing a direct translation, is that if someone has a response to that particular line that is in a different language, sometimes it points us to what the meaning is for that line. Yeah.
So like context, right?
Yes, it gives us context. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so a couple of people have asked this question where when you have multiple characters, either in a scene or in a story, how do you distinguish between the characters? Do they all have different voices, different ways of speaking, and how do you make that clear?
That's great. So, okay, so you know how I was reading the script back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth, is that I am just like as you would, reading a children's book to a child, is that you need to do the different voices. It feels silly, but even as you're writing it, do the different voices. Because, for example, in the script that we just did today, is that Wendy's not going to speak like man. Man isn't going to speak like woman. They're all going to speak in different, distinct voices. The more distinct that we can understand, their ages, their background, everything, is that the more the reader is going to hear it in their heads, or on screen, or the actors are going to be reading it in a way that that they understand you've written it. So the more you read it out loud, the more you're going to develop what those mannerisms are, like the way that they'll structure a sentence. For example, for man, we are understanding this for this character is that he's a little bit of it's like a little bit of a fumbler, like he can't finish a sentence. He doesn't a lot of shrug, like even now, see, look at the way that I'm doing it, I'm shrugging my shoulders. He's one of those guys who are like he's the kind of guy that you can't count on, and that's very frustrating to be around. He's probably a spendthrift, right? Whereas woman seems like very, like the sentences are very tight, they're sharp, and so you can see that how the more I'm understanding what my body's doing, this for the man, for the woman it's this. Where have you been? Like the more I understand what's happening in my body, saying, embodying these characters more and more, the more I'm going to create distinct voices. And the way that I'm going to put the words down onto the page, it's going to come alive in front of me. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But saying it out loud, I really encourage people to say it out. Don't feel silly. Just keep on going. It's not for the Oscars or anything, but it's just so that you can really get their voices down.
Yes. So find a room where you're by yourself and no one can hear you anyway. So it's okay if you sound.
Yes, or if you have friends, I'm from theater, please get them to read things out loud. You can hear when you make mistakes. But yeah, and you can hear how, like when I was doing this, is that you can, doing it in real time, you can really hear where the sentence has to be restructured if you keep on screwing it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a great tip. I really liked that one.
Yeah.
Okay. One more question, very quick and short, is when you were talking about the doing business or the action things that people are doing as opposed to just having talking heads. So you mentioned they have to be doing something as they're talking. So how do you determine what they do for that scene? What type of actions do they need to do for that scene, and how to yeah, let's do that. How do you determine what kind of business they need to be doing in that particular scene?
Well, I try to make it a business that gives us something. So for example, oh my gosh, yeah, Polar Vortex. Oh my gosh, thank you. I was trying to remember what the name of the book was. Polar Vortex by Shani Matu. Is that there is that scene. It is awful where you're understanding that there is I don't want to give it away, but there's some kind of something that's happening. And this one spouse is thinking that something might be happening between her spouse and someone else. I don't want to give it away. But during this entire scene, she's making granola. That scene is brilliant because I love that book. It was so painful to read. It was like, oh my God, this is like lesbian argument nightmare. Yeah, this character is making granola the entire time. Now imagine how in our heads we're thinking that this is a very calm activity, making granola. But actually she's doing it a lot with like a lot of thoughtfulness, like wondering like, am I making a meal for someone who is possibly sleeping with my wife? Like it is so interesting. So choose business that gives us something about them. In this case, we have Wendy holding pillows. We have Steve who's like looking through drapery. There you choose and you have to try it. There might be you try different activities until you have one that doesn't that gives enough dramatic tension, but yet makes the most sense for that character at that very moment in time. In this case, we were doing IKEA. Is that it is all very tense. All of it is awful. We're like buying all of these things for our houses. Like for what? What are we doing? And we're in public. We can't have this argument. That's the most tense thing that I could come up with. So they're not going to be playing, they're not going to be knitting because that doesn't make sense to do that in IKEA. They're not going to be playing jump rope, nor are they just going to be calmly waiting in line to cash out, because that's not very interesting either. What's interesting is being in the thick of it, about to buy their kid college room of furniture. So yeah, so just try things out, but we can keep on trying different things until we feel that it's the right activity.
Great. Thank you so much, Catherine. This has been really fantastic, and I hope that people have gotten a lot out of it. A reminder that it is been recorded and it will be posted onto YouTube next week. So watch your inboxes for an email with a link to that. Our next Fold Academy is coming up on Saturday, February 15th, and I will be doing it, yours truly. It will be a workshop on an introduction to self-publishing. So what is self-publishing? Is it the right choice for you? How do you get started if that's something you want to explore? Registration is open right now, so go check that out. I also want to remind folks that our Pitch Perfect program is accepting applications. So if you have a completed manuscript that you would like to get some feedback on, you can apply and we will assign you an agent or an editor, and you get to have a one-on-one meeting with them to get feedback on your manuscript. The deadline for that is February 1st. So make sure you go and do that. We have a survey, which I've just put into the chat. I hope everyone can see that. We'd love to get your feedback on what's working with Fold Academy, what's not working, what you would like to see more in the future, what topics you want us to cover, or maybe specific speakers you'd love us to invite. So feel free to give us some of your feedback there. The link to that will also be sent out when I send you the YouTube link. And lastly, Fold Academy is free for writers of whatever, no matter what you write. But to do that, we depend on the generosity of our supporters. So if you found value in our monthly Fold Academy workshops, please consider supporting us with a monthly donation or a one-time donation. You can learn more about that at thefoldcanada.org/donate. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.